Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
84 dead, including 2 Americans and 10 children. The terrorists drove for over 1 mile down the streets in a major intersection in Nice, France. The tower was plowed with explosives and weapons-laden truck, although there are reports that some of those explosives were actually decoys. How did he get through the checkpoints in Nice, which is a big tourist area? He said he was delivering ice cream for the festivities. His name is Mohamed Bouel. He was born in Tunisia, nationalized in France several years ago. This is not the first time that vehicles have been utilized by terrorist organizations. This has happened in Israel on multiple occasions. But in 2006, here in the United States, the University of North Carolina, Mohammed Tariz Azir, he utilized a truck to cause havoc. Ahmed Popel in California in 2006 used an SUV. 2007, Glasgow, Scotland. 2008 in Jerusalem, they also utilized bulldozers in Jerusalem. In 2009, attack on the Dutch royal family in the Netherlands. 2011, vehicles were utilized in a nightclub. ISIS has said in their magazines, as Al-Qaeda, utilize those type of instruments. And they actually, it seems in one sense not sophisticated, but in another sense is very sophisticated, because without an explosive, there are at least 84 people, including 10 kids, dead in France by utilizing a truck. Now, Jordan, we've seen this actually in Israel. This is an old technique of the terrorists.
Yes, but to have a truck of this size, so you've got to have, again, the resources to rent that vehicle under the radar, not be labeled as someone suspicious. These continued in London in 2013 and 2014, again in Jerusalem, and in 2014 in Canada, a couple more in Jerusalem in 2014. And then it's been done in France before to some extent, in Dijon, in Nantes in 2014, and then, of course, Nice yesterday on Bastille Day. So as the people are celebrating, this is the French Riviera, a beautiful part of France, on the coastline as the fireworks displays are ongoing for their Independence Day. And then this attack, which you've had not just French, but Americans and many others from around the world, including children.
The spokesman for ISIS, Abu Muhammad al-Aldini, in 2014 said this: if you're not able to find an IED or a bullet, then single out the disbelieving Americans, Frenchmen, or any of their allies. Smash their heads with rocks or slaughter them with a knife or run them over with your car or throw them down a high place or choke them or poison them. This is a world war. We have engaged and entered into World War III. It's time the world recognize it. Our own administration clearly is not. Will the French now recognize it? Folks, we need to take direct action on this. We have a petition up at aclj.org. We're going to encourage you to sign it. We have to defeat ISIS. We've got a 5-point plan to do it. We need that implemented by Congress now. Go to aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255.
The Islamic State, ISIS, wants to destroy America and eradicate Christianity. Jihadists pledging allegiance to ISIS and radical Islam have attacked America, slaughtering dozens of Americans in multiple terrorist attacks. President Obama refuses to acknowledge the enemy. His administration has failed to protect us. ISIS is at war with us. We must wage war against ISIS. At the ACLJ, we've developed a critical 5-point strategy to defeat and destroy this jihadist enemy. We have 5 key steps to defeat ISIS. 1. Name the enemy, Islamic jihadists. 2. Fix our broken intelligence. 3. Ramp up undercover stings to smoke out jihadists at home. 4. Declare war on ISIS. And 5. Unleash full U.S. military might to utterly destroy ISIS. Stand with us. Add your name to our new petition right now. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
Horrible situation in Nice, France. We're in World War III. That's what I'm calling it because that's what it is. We've got multiple countries being attacked by multiple entities from different countries. They've got territory in Syria and Iraq. 84 dead, 2 Americans included, 10 kids. You saw the carnage on TV. It was breathtaking in scope. The reality is that the reaction that's coming out, we'll get into some of the politics in the second half of the broadcast, but I think this does show, Jordan, and then we'll get Wes and Skip into this conversation, that the fact of the matter is this is a global war. We need to treat it like a global war and stop acting like this is a police action. It's not.
No, it's absolutely not. I mean, this takes a military response. It takes military-type security at these large events. I mean, what's shocking here is that this was not a random night in France with a concert or an event, but this is Bastille Day. This is their Independence Day. Like our July 4th celebrations, you expect maximum security in the places that will have the largest amounts of people and crowds, like a promenade on a waterfront in the south of France, on the French Riviera. Lots of tourists, lots of people from around France, children are out, and you would expect that this would be some of the most high security events. And reports I've heard, for instance, for the Euro Cup final, for the soccer tournament final, just to watch go into the fan zone was more difficult last week in France playing in that final. That was more difficult than going to the festivities last night. Now, there is a scope issue. Yep. It's one thing to go into a fan zone that's monitored, and another when you have citywide fireworks and celebrations.
Tougher. But the guy said, the terrorist said he was delivering ice cream and nobody checked. We're taking your calls on this at 1-800-684-3110. How do you think this impacts the election? What do you think the response in the United States should be? Do you agree we're in a world war here? Robert is on the phone with us. He's calling out of Maryland. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the broadcast. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. How you doing, Jay?
Good.
I wanted to ask you a question. In light of the newest terrorist attack over in France and also coupled with the other terrorist attacks in Chattanooga, Tennessee, San Bernardino, California, Boston, Massachusetts, Garland, Texas, and Orlando, Florida, what from a military and intelligence standpoint does the United States need to be doing in order to tackle these problems to defeat this enemy? And I want to couple it with this question also. What does specifically the National Security Agency need to be doing in order to help tackle this problem with being able to deal with the civil liberties issues, which I always know comes up in light of these debates? Can you explain the difference between the laws of war in relationship to civil liberty issues in relationship to civilian law enforcement situations?
I think that those are great questions. Let me say this. We have a listing of the jihadist attacks since Charlie Hebdo. In January in 2015, it was the Hebdo attack. February in 2015, the Copenhagen attacks. April of 2015, the Kenya attacks, killing 148 people, mostly students, Christians, killed at a university. May 3rd, the Garland attack, 2 dead, 1 injured. June 26th in France, there was another attack, the beheading the factory. Chattanooga followed that up a month later. Next month in August in France, a shooting and stabbing the train traveling from Amsterdam to Paris. Remember that one? November in Paris, the big attacks there, 137 killed. December, San Bernardino. March 22nd, Brussels, Belgium of 2016. June 12th, 2016, Orlando, Florida, 49 killed. June 28th, Istanbul in Turkey. July 1st, Bangladesh, 20 killed. July 14th in Nice, France, 84 killed. We are joined by Skip Ash and our who's a national security law head of our national security law group and our military law group. So and also Wes Smith, who's our senior military advisor. But Skip, let's go to Robert's question, and that is the military law here. First of all, I'm saying now we're engaged in a world war. We haven't called it a war yet, but we're engaged in a world war.
Right. You don't have to declare a war to be in a war. Right. They have already brought the war to us. So we are actually the recipient of a war. So we are in a war. The problem we have, and there are certain steps we need to take which we have failed to take so far. One is to recognize who the enemy is. Then what we need to do is to establish a clear mission. What do you hope to accomplish? What if you're going to apply force, what do you hope to accomplish? Then you need to apply, once that's decided, you need to apply the resources necessary to do it, and then you need to get out of the way of the military because they know how to do it. We have professionals here who know how to win wars. What we need to do is just have political will on the part of our leadership, and then we'll be able to take care of this.
We're joined, as I said, by two of our military analysts. You just heard from Skip Ash, our senior counsel and head of our national security military law group. Wes Smith, it's also retired colonel, United States Army, as was Skip, I should say. But let me go to this on Wes, following up what Skip just said, because I think this is a big issue, and this is the fact that we're not calling it a war. The president's had this position, which I think is clearly shown the fallacy of his entire approach to the Middle East. And I don't hear a lot different from Hillary Clinton. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's talk about engagement here. I mean, how do you, people are asking, Robert asked, how do you engage this?
Yeah. Well, we have to change how we view this war, and the enemy gets to vote whether or not we're in a war. And as long as we inject politics and political correctness into our terror threat assessment, when we do that, we hand the terrorist a moral, a psychological, and a paramilitary victory. Basically, we lose. And so the talk from the French president in the White House last night, the statements about how we are united and how we stand together and they won't intimidate us or change how we live. We don't need a cheerleader. We need a commander-in-chief. And as Skip said, someone who will state the objective clearly and show us how we will fight this war and how we will win. We no longer need a cheerleader.
So when you look at I think it's a very good point. And I don't know if we have any to sound from President Obama. I think he just actually issued a statement. But let's talk about this. You got, Jordan, 84 people dead, 10 children, 2 Americans. This is a global attack. And, you know, it was in a very much a tourist area, so they're looking at what's called soft targets. Yeah. But the reality is that this is going to be the dominant issue in these political campaigns. You got the Republican National Convention starting Monday.
Yeah, and you go through the list. I mean, it's not just every couple of weeks. It's every few days, massive terror attacks. Obviously, when these hit the Western world, specifically, whether it be Orlando or in France or in other European countries, I think that hits home directly, more directly for all of us who are fighting, and whether it's those NATO allies that we talk about or the Western world that we commonly refer to, which includes Western Europe and the United States, places which we have always seen as places to visit, places of relative safety in large crowds, like on a Bastille Day, where we obviously know threats are up. Like we know that here on July 4th, threats are up, security is up, and this is a very large city. This would be this is the top 5 largest cities in France. So this would be a major city in the United States, and again, there are a large population of migrants from and immigrants from North Africa because those were former French colonies and territories. Most of those countries weren't independent until after World War II, including Tunisia. And you've got a lot of free flow of individuals. They speak French. They've grown up in French culture, so they kind of can move back and forth through North Africa into France. So a bit of a different scale when it comes to individuals and the amount of migration, especially based on the actual population of France, than we deal with even here in the United States.
A father and son from Texas were among those killed. 10 children. The driver has been identified as a 31-year-old Tunisian national who became a French citizen a few years ago. Skip, you look at the situation. We are getting questions about NATO. Let's talk about that. You've got some expertise there. Let's talk about NATO for a moment.
Sure. The North Atlantic Treaty, Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, clearly states that an attack on one or more of the members of the alliance is considered an attack on every member of the alliance. This is an attack. The first thing they have to establish is whether this attack was motivated from outside of France. If it was, then the NATO North Atlantic Treaty can trigger and can be activated. If the French request a meeting and request that Article 5, then the members of NATO are obligated to go meet and to decide, and they're obligated to provide what they can to assist the French in handling this situation.
Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, and, this year alone, 4 NATO countries have been attacked by either ISIS-directed, ISIS-inspired groups, the U.S., Belgium, France, and Turkey. So all 4 of those countries can invoke Article 5. And I think what we need is to understand that the only way that ISIS and ISIS ilk are going to be defeated is if NATO forms an alliance, much like the alliance in World War II, and that we take the fight to them.
Well, that's why
and that NATO leads that fight. I think it's rather naive to think that a mixture of Arab armies are going to defeat ISIS.
I think that's exactly
There's too much
correct.
conflict between the armies.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. Than, really quickly here, what is reaction in Washington right now?
Well, I think there's disappointment in the president's leadership. But, Jay, honestly, I'm going to be real candid here. I think Congress needs to step up as well. I mean, clearly there is a primary failure on behalf of the commander-in-chief. But if you look back at the 5-point plan that we put out, we clearly make the argument that There's a role for Congress to fill here. They can step up. They can either declare war or authorize the use of force, Jay, and that's going to be important not just for this president, who many of us may believe does not take this seriously, but the next president is going to step into this threat, and they need to have the tools at their disposal to fight it.
This is an intergenerational conflict. We've talked about that before, but Jordan, as you look at it coming into the political season, and we are in that political season now, this is going to be issue one.
It has to be the main issue, because it's not just happening abroad, it's happening in our own country. The threat of these radicalized individuals, they meet similar profiles, age-wise, personality-wise. We hear in this individual in France, the same kind of statements we've heard about a lot of these terrorists, not necessarily a great Muslim by the book, someone who kind of flouted many of the rules of Islam.
Which is the pattern.
Yes, and that's who, but violent, but had a violent past, known to attack his wife. So he had the violent past, a little bit off the mainstream. That's who ISIS and these groups are targeting to carry out these attacks.
As we go into this break, I think it's very important for you to take action and join us in this fight. We've got a 5-point plan. We've presented it to Congress. We're getting movement. We need your help. Sign that petition right now at aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
The Islamic State, ISIS, wants to destroy America and eradicate Christianity. Jihadists pledging allegiance to ISIS and radical Islam have attacked America, slaughtering dozens of Americans in multiple terrorist attacks. President Obama refuses to acknowledge the enemy. His administration has failed to protect us. ISIS is at war with us. We must wage war against ISIS. At the ACLJ, we've developed a critical 5-point strategy to defeat and destroy this jihadist enemy. We have 5 key steps to defeat ISIS. 1. Name the enemy, Islamic jihadists. 2. Fix our broken intelligence. 3. Ramp up undercover stings to smoke out jihadists at home. 4. Declare war on ISIS. And 5. Unleash full U.S. military might to utterly destroy ISIS. Stand with us. Add your name to our new petition right now. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
84 dead, 2 Americans included, a father and son, 10 children in Nice, France. France again under attack. We have an affiliate of the American Center for Law and Justice, the European Center for Law and Justice in Strasbourg, France. Our Director General, Gregor Papunik, is joining us right now from Strasbourg. Gregor, of course, the thoughts and prayers of all of our listening audience go to your fellow countrymen in France. This is a significant problem. Let's talk about the problem in France, Gregor. I think it's very important for people to hear. Again, this gives you kind of the scope, folks, of the ACLJ's global reach here. This is from our office in Strasbourg. Talk to me about the problem that you have in France right now.
Yes, thank you very much, Jay. Yes, France is really facing now its destiny, because we have all those attacks coming. But more deeply, we have a deeper problem, which is the fact that there are at least 10,000 Muslims identified, living in France, identified as dangerous for the security of the state. More than 10,000 people are able to commit such attacks. We also have in France about 30,000 radical Islamists that are called Salafists, which are also already within the ideology of the jihad. So within our own territory, within the own French citizen, among the recent people, who came from immigration, about 30,000 people who are potential soldiers of jihad are living in France. So this is the main problem for our people, our country, and it is clear that in the next coming years, we will have to face this problem clearly.
Okay, so you talk about the solutions, because one of the things we're talking about, folks, you're going to get both domestic and international solutions. Let's talk about the solution, Gregor, that you've outlined, which I want to turn this into a post for the website. I think this will be very helpful and we'll get it out on social media. You propose a solution, and you start with abroad, we need to, and I want you to go into this, defeat them militarily.
The solutions are, we have to fight both in our country and abroad. First, abroad, the emergency abroad is to clearly fight and defeat the jihad where it stands, mainly today in Syria and Iraq, but also in Libya and in Nigeria. And everywhere there are such groups of jihadists, we have to go there and to fight them and to defeat them abroad. This is very clear. We should not accept such kind of states, groups, organizations, attracting people from all over the world. Then we also have to fight in a different way at home. And at home, we have to secure our own country. I mean, this is the emergency. We live today already since the first Paris attack under a state of emergency.
Gregor, will you explain to the people because France has been under the state of emergency since the attack last year in Paris. What does that mean?
It means that we don't live anymore under the rule of law, under the state of law. We have laws of exceptions. There is no more full respect of the fundamental freedoms.
Yep.
Police has much more rights, much more possibility to arrest people, to keep people under arrest. So, I mean, the power of the police are much more important. There are less freedoms and liberties. And in the meantime, we have now in France 10,000 soldiers fully armed in the streets. When you go to church on Sunday, you have the army protecting you around your church or around your schools or around your synagogues. So we are really living now under protection of the army, but it's not sufficient because when you have just one single young man living in the neighborhoods who can rent a truck and commit such attack, how can you protect the population from such people?
All right, let me go to Harry Hutchison here because I want to put this on the domestic side too. We'll go back to Gregor and Jordan in a moment. We've outlined a 5-point plan on what we think we need to do in the U.S. Let's go. I think it's very important for people to hear that we're not just talking about the problem here, that we've got solutions. Gregor just gave an international one I think is right. They're talking about they have 10,000 armed military protecting churches and schools. I mean, they're taking it, and it's still you had this horrendous attack. But let's talk about what we've outlined in our 5-point plan very quickly.
Jay, as the frequency of these attacks rises, it raises a vitally important question. How many more people must be slaughtered? How many more people must be tortured before we realize that ISIS and other radical Islamic terrorist organizations are at war with us?
Yep.
In response, the ACLJ has outlined a crucial 5-point plan to defeat ISIS. First, name the enemy, Islamic Jihadists. Second, fix our broken intelligence system. Third, ramp up undercover stings to smoke out jihadists at home. Fourth, authorize military force against ISIS. And fifth, unleash the full military might of the U.S. Army to utterly destroy and eviscerate ISIS.
All right, so let me talk to one about Jordan, then I'm going to go back to Gregor. Jordan, we talk about ramping up undercover sting operations. We know that the attack in Orlando, you had mentioned this, Omar Martin, not only was he under investigation by the FBI, he lied to the FBI agents and we let him go.
Yeah, that's right. And so he was someone who had known a terrorist who went overseas, blew themselves up in a suicide attack at a same Islamic prayer center. I don't call it a mosque, not that size. I mean, this is a strip mall prayer center,
right.
which had about 100 active male members, all who knew Omar Mateen in Orlando, none who said anything to law enforcement. And so there is a problem inside these communities as well with reporting these individuals. Now we're hearing about the attacker in France, that he was not so particularly religious in following the tenets of the faith. But we know in Orlando's situation, bizarre people looking for redemption, that they may struggle with Islamic law, especially strict interpretation of Islamic law, and individuals with violent pasts, which these all meet, that they are the ones recruited by these terror groups to carry out these attacks. They're looking for the troubled. They're looking for those who may not fit in, the loners, the people who have trouble in their personal life relationships or with their families.
Gregor, you put in your bulletin that we're going to condense some of this to a post for those set, that we have to be confident in Western culture and our values. Do not be afraid.
Our culture, is strong. And one of the reasons why those young people get crazy and commit attacks is because they are desperate in some extent by their own culture. They see that Islam do not stand modernity. And it is a dead end for them. They don't see how they can survive within modernity as Orthodox Muslims. I mean, there is no room for such belief in a Western modern society. And so they get desperate and they suicide themselves and they try to kill as many people as they can. So in some extent, we have to realize that we are facing a global crisis within Islam. because they cannot escape any more modernity.
Yep.
With internet, with TV,
they're very effective in using this. So, I appreciate your comments. Quickly to Harry, we talked about the 5 points, but we don't have any time to lose right now. I mean, this is because the frequency. You and I were talking about this before we went on air. The frequency of this is getting breathtaking.
Absolutely. This is a civilizational struggle between the West and barbarism, and we don't have time to lose. We must attack. We must respond to this attack head on.
All right. I want to take what you just said, Professor Hutchinson, and what Gregor just said, and have you do a joint. We'll coordinate this afterwards. I think what Gregor has put in writing, what you're talking about, needs to be a post for the website. We'll get it out on our social media. We'll give you responses. I want to thank Gregor Pupinik from our office in Strasbourg, France, Wes Smith and Skip Ash and Harry Hutchison for coming on and giving some really good expertise. We're going to get that article up by Professor Hutchison and by Gregor Pupinik, one article by both of them. I think that will give it lay out the 5-point plan. We have that up already. I think it's very important for you to take action and join us in this fight. We've got a 5-point plan. We've presented it to Congress. We're getting movement. We need your help. Sign that petition right now at aclj.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Pray for these families. Pray for France. Pray for all of us. This is an attack. This is real. Talk to you over the weekend.
The Islamic State, ISIS, wants to destroy America and eradicate Christianity. Jihadists pledging allegiance to ISIS and radical Islam have attacked America, slaughtering dozens of Americans in multiple terrorist attacks. President Obama refuses to acknowledge the enemy. His administration has failed to protect us. ISIS is at war with us. We must wage war against ISIS. At the ACLJ, we've developed a critical 5-point strategy to defeat and destroy this jihadist enemy. We have 5 key steps to defeat ISIS. 1. Name the enemy, Islamic jihadists. 2. Fix our broken intelligence. 3. Ramp up undercover stings to smoke out jihadists at home. 4. Declare war on ISIS. And 5. Unleash full U.S. military might to utterly destroy ISIS. Stand with us. Add your name to our new petition right now. Call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or add your name online, aclj.org.